Sometimes, love doesn't break all at once. It wears you down slowly. One bill at a time. One sacrifice after another. Until one day, you realize you weren't building a life together. You were carrying it alone. This is Breakup Diaries. Stories about love, truth, and the moments that change everything. The first time I paid the rent alone, I told myself it was temporary. Jordan stood in the kitchen, running his hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "I just need a little more time," he said. "Things are tight right now." And I believed him. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You don't immediately question their struggle. You don't assume they're not trying. You step in, you help. So I covered the rent. Then the electricity bill. Then groceries. At first, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like support. Like I was holding things down for us, just until he got back on his feet. "I promise, I've got you," he would say, pulling me into a hug that always felt just convincing enough. And I held onto that promise. Even when weeks turned into months. Even when "just a little more time" started sounding like something I had heard too many times before. Still, I kept going. Because walking away never felt like an option. Not when I had already invested so much. Not when I kept thinking, this was just a phase. But slowly, something started to shift. Not all at once. Just small things. The way he stopped offering updates about his job search. The way he brushed off conversations about money like they didn't matter. The way I started checking my account balance more often than I checked in with myself. And the truth was, I was getting tired. Not just physically. Emotionally. Because no matter how much I gave, it never seemed to change anything. The bills didn't get lighter. The pressure didn't ease. And Jordan. He stayed the same. Calm, unbothered. Like everything was still under control. But it didn't feel that way to me anymore. Because somewhere between helping him and holding everything together, I started to feel something I hadn't felt before. Not anger. Not yet. Just a quiet, uncomfortable question sitting in the back of my mind. One I wasn't ready to say out loud. But I could feel it getting louder. Because deep down, I was starting to wonder. Was he really trying to fix things? Or had I just made it too easy for him not to? If you think it was just about money, it was. It was about what the money started to reveal. Because after a while, it wasn't the bills that bothered me most. It was how normal everything felt to him. I was working longer hours, picking up extra shifts, cutting back on things I used to enjoy. And Jordan. He didn't seem to be carrying the same pressure. Every time I tried to talk about it, the conversation would slide right past him. "I'm figuring it out," he'd say. "Just give me a little more time." The same words, every time. At first, I tried to stay patient. But patience starts to feel different when it's not met with effort. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one night, bills spread out in front of me, calculator in hand, trying to make everything stretch just enough to cover another month. He walked in, glanced at the table and said, "You worry too much." Too much. That word stayed with me. Because to him, it was worry. But to me, it was reality. And for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not yet. But something close to it. Because it started to feel less like I was helping him, and more like I was carrying him. And the more I carried, the less he seemed to move. That's when the question came back. Louder this time. Was he really trying? Or had he just gotten comfortable? Backhand index pointing, right, if you've ever felt like you were giving more than you were getting, keep watching. Because what I noticed next. That's when everything stopped making sense. The first sign wasn't obvious. It never is. It was something small. So small, I almost ignored it. Jordan came home one afternoon carrying a shopping bag. Nothing unusual about that. Except, we weren't in a position to be buying anything extra. "What's that?" I asked casually. "Just something I needed," he replied, setting it down quickly. No details. No explanation. Just enough to close the conversation. And normally, I would have let it go. But something about it didn't sit right. Not because of what he bought, but because of how easily he brushed it off. So I started paying attention. Not in an obvious way. Just quietly. Watching. Listening. And the more I noticed, the more things didn't add up. He wasn't working full-time. He wasn't contributing financially. But somehow, he never seemed completely broke. There were moments, little ones, where it felt like money wasn't actually the problem. And that realization, it changes everything. Because once you start questioning one thing, you start questioning everything. I replayed conversations in my head, looked at patterns I hadn't seen before, and slowly, a new thought started forming. One that made me uncomfortable just thinking about it. What if the issue wasn't that he didn't have money? What if he was just choosing not to spend it on us? I didn't go looking for proof. At least, not at first. But once the doubt settles in, it has a way of guiding you. Jordan had left his phone on the couch that evening. Unlocked. Face down. I stared at it longer than I should have, telling myself not to touch it, that I didn't need to. But something in me already knew. If I didn't look, I'd keep wondering. And that felt worse. So I picked it up. Just for a second. That's what I told myself. Until I saw the transactions. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw the pattern. Payments. Regular. Consistent. And none of them were for anything in our life. Not rent. Not groceries. Not bills. Something else. Somewhere else. My heart started racing, not because I understood it, but because I didn't. I scrolled slowly, trying to make sense of it. But the more I saw, the clearer it became. This wasn't random. This was intentional. And it had been happening for a while. Which meant one thing. He wasn't struggling the way he said he was. He was choosing where his money went. And somehow, I wasn't part of that choice. I didn't wait. I couldn't. By the time he walked through the door, I already knew this conversation wasn't going to be easy. "We need to talk," I said. He looked at me, cautious but calm. "What's wrong?" I held up his phone. That was enough. His expression changed instantly. Not confusion. Recognition. "You want to explain this?" I asked. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then he sighed. Like he was tired of holding something in. "It's not what you think," he said. I almost laughed. "Then tell me what it is." And that's when the truth came out. Not all at once, but enough. There was another place. Another apartment. Not his. But somewhere he had been putting money into. Helping someone. Spending time there. Living a different version of his life. "And you couldn't tell me?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. "It wasn't like that." But it was. Maybe not exactly how I imagined. But enough to change everything. Because while I was breaking myself trying to support us, he was building something else entirely. And I had no idea. I thought the truth would make it easier. That once I understood everything, I'd know what to do. But standing there, listening to him explain, I realized something I didn't expect. The truth doesn't always bring clarity. Sometimes, it just confirms what you already feel. "I was doing what I had to do," he said. I nodded slowly. "I know." And I meant it. But that didn't change anything. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about choice. And he had been making his. Without me. "I needed you," I said quietly. His expression softened. I was still here. I shook my head. "No, you weren't." Because being physically present isn't the same as showing up. And somewhere along the way, he stopped showing up for us. Maybe he never realized it. Maybe he thought he was doing enough. But the result was still the same. I was carrying everything alone. And now I knew why. Not because he couldn't help, but because he chose not to. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. I took a step back, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about what he needed. I was thinking about what I deserved. And that changed everything. I thought I was supporting him, but I was just financing a life I was never part of. And the real question is, how long would I have kept paying if I never found out?